Welcome and thank you for joining me here on this Saturday morning. Early in the day, I'll probably have another video later on. We continue to track potential tropical cyclone 9, which is likely to bring tropical storm conditions into the Bahamas this weekend and very likely to be tropical storm Imelda sometime in the next 24 hours. We have tropical storm warnings in effect for the central and northwestern Bahamas. After that, the track gets extremely uncertain, but impacts to the southeastern U.S. and potential landfall on the table here for next week with maybe only a couple of days to prepare. We're going to talk about that and Major Hurricane Humberto, which is going to Category 5, believe it or not, our third major hurricane of the season, and then more in this upcoming video. Thank you for joining me here. We're going to get right to it in the video. I'm going to share my screen with you and walk you through everything here. And I do want to basically point out what's going on across the globe here first. Hang with me. It's a little bit early in the day for me even. But we do have on the map, we still have the remains of Gabrielle, which have actually strengthened a little bit, expected to move into southwestern Portugal here during the overnight hours, very close to Lisbon, and then weaken substantially over land. So expecting rough weather in Portugal late this afternoon into tonight. Hurricane Humberto is strengthening and closing in on Category 5 intensity, now our second strongest hurricane of the season. And that, fortunately, is going to be recurving and no immediate threat to land. But folks in Bermuda will have impacts towards the middle of next week. And then we've got future tropical storm Imelda, which is likely to become a hurricane. But the question mark is going to be where it ends up and how it impacts the southeast coast. So I'm going to spend most of the video talking about that. In the Pacific, we do have Category 1 Hurricane Narda racking up some ace points here over the eastern Pacific, but no threat to land. Quiet in the central Pacific. The western Pacific, not as busy as last week, but we still have a strong tropical storm, Neoguri, which has been out here for the better part of 9 to 10 days. No threat to land. And we do have Typhoon Bueloy, and that is unfortunately heading for Vietnam as a stronger typhoon, winds of 100 to 120 miles per hour expected. That'll produce some wind damage for sure at the coast, maybe even across Hainan and China. It's also going to be a major flood maker across inland portions of southeastern Asia, not just Vietnam, but Laos and Thailand and Myanmar and southwestern portions of China will likely see some flooding out of this. So some destruction on the other part of the globe, unfortunately, here. All right, we're going to talk about the Atlantic Basin for the rest of the video. And you see Humberto and 9 on the map over here. No other areas expected to form through the weekend and probably for the balance of next week. The Gulf is still quiet for now. October, that might change. We'll talk about that, of course, in coming videos. But you can see that potential tropical cyclone 9 is starting to move a little bit here to the northwest at 7 miles per hour and located at 21.9 north, 75.8 west. That puts the center of the system just between the northeastern coast of Cuba and the southwestern portion of the Bahamas. It is still to a spot where low pressure has not quite consolidated to the point where it could be called a tropical depression, but it's not far from that happening. Probably will happen later on today. Humberto has strengthened substantially. Yesterday morning, it was a low-end Category 1. Today, it's a higher-end Category 4, and I do think Category 5 is expected sometime between now and Sunday morning. And winds are 145 miles per hour. It's moving slowly west, but that forward speed that is 6 miles per hour is expected to pick up, and that is going to influence the track of what should be Imelda here when we get later into the weekend. Those two are going to interact with each other, and that is going to complicate the forecast substantially. Right now, there's plenty of space between the two systems, but that space is expected to narrow down quite a bit. And I will show you right here is Hurricane Humberto, not nearly as big a storm as Aaron was, more the size of Gabrielle, but in a spot where it's over the waters where we've seen some extreme amounts of intensification. Hurricane Aaron went from 1 to 5 in here about 6 weeks ago. This one, 1 to 4 and on its way to 5 in here. And then Gabrielle went from 1 to 4 right up in here. So for whatever reason, 60 West is the spot to watch this season. This is where 90% of our ACE, which is accumulated cyclone potential energy, has occurred this season, right in this little notch of the Sargasso Sea of the central and southwestern Atlantic. But you know what? That is not really the storm that I'm super concerned with. I'm concerned with Imelda and where she's going to end up going. Not yet Imelda, but getting in that direction. So right now we're looking at a potential center forming just to the west of Great Anagua in the Bahamas. We've got a lot of players on the map which are in play here. Those of you that are returning already know this, but if you're just joining me here for the first time, I do want to explain why this is so complicated. We have future Imelda right here. We've got an upper level trough in the eastern United States, a cutoff low expected to form here. And the reason why it's cutting off is that we're going to see a big area of high pressure building north of it, trapping this trough down in here and getting it stuck. We have a big area of high pressure here, so there's nowhere for this trough to go but get stuck. And as a result, with this trough here and with this ridge here, there's really no place for these systems to go but in between the two. So Imelda is going to be here. Humberto should be able to escape, but because Imelda's here, Imelda's going to get stuck. And the big question mark is, can this upper low escape to the west and allow Imelda to come inland into South Carolina? That is certainly a possibility. But because that is taking its time happening because of the ridge of high pressure up in here, what's likely to happen is Humberto is going to get closer to Imelda and begin to yank her in his direction. And that is going to complicate things because he's going to only have so much of a grip he's going to be able to put on her before she may be able to get out of captivity. So we're going to talk about how that's going to play out or potentially play out with a lot of uncertainties on the map. You can see Humberto, strong looking system. The eye is well defined. And it is a crime that we don't have any aircraft to get in and figure out how strong he is, but likely borderline category 5 right now. A little bit lopsided. There's some wind shear, but not really getting into the center of the storm, only impacting the outer bands of this. So you can see there's probably going to be some more strengthening today. And then eventually we'll get to a spot where that doesn't happen anymore. And that probably starts this evening or overnight tonight. You can see things are getting a lot more organized today, but still some time needed for that to happen, just due to the fact that there are mountains in eastern Cuba. There's shear out of the south. We do have southerly flow ahead of future Imelda right here, which is coming out of this trough over the eastern Gulf and over the eastern United States. In between the two, we're going to see wet weather across the mid-Atlantic and the Carolinas today. Some heavy rainfall expected out ahead of this system, mainly across the Piedmont area, Raleigh, Richmond, Charlottesville, Charlotte. All these areas are probably going to see some heavy rain today and a little bit more for tomorrow as well. Florida is going to get in on the rain as well. The areas of Florida that really need that rain over here are now dry. So unfortunately, we're not getting any more of that. But we are going to see some needed rain over this portion of the country here. So that's what our weekend starts out looking like. Sorry about that. I'll get that off the map for you. Behind Humberto, things are very quiet. We have a large trough digging down in here. You can kind of see the shape of it here, this V, creating some strong westerlies across the intertropical convergence zone. So there are some thunderstorms that eventually could fight back against that out here in the east central Atlantic, but these right now have no shot at developing. So unlikely we're going to see development behind Humberto for probably another 5 to 6 days at the very minimum. Here's Humberto, small but powerful system, very well defined here. You can see on the water vapor, the trough behind it, the trough ahead of it, the wind shear southwest of it. He's small enough, though, to avoid all of those features. There will probably be at some point an eye wall replacement cycle, which will limit the storm from getting stronger. Not sure when exactly that will start. It's not something that's easy to predict, but once it happens, you'll know it. But we're likely looking at winds that are approaching 150 miles per hour. And the forecast for this is for the wind speeds to go above category 4 to category 5, which starts at 156 miles per hour. So we're only 11 miles per hour away from that happening, and likely be our second category 5 hurricane of the season. Then some gradual weakening as wind shear increases, as the waters begin to cool and the storm makes the bend a couple hundred miles to the west of Bermuda. And that will happen Tuesday and Wednesday. And then out to sea, just like Aaron, just like Gabrielle, just like Fernand. It will not be a threat beyond that point. Really, it's just a Bermuda storm at this point. And tropical storm watches and warnings are things that I do think are certainly in the offing, especially if this track shifts a little bit to the right, which is a possibility, but not a given yet at this point. So you can see the spaghetti plot all show a fairly well-behaved system at this point. Intensity forecast, trickier, but it's hard to ignore the category 4. And we do have several model solutions showing near or above category 5 strength in the next 24 hours. With rapid intensification, these models underestimate how quickly we get to that point. But if there is an eye wall replacement, it may not get there. That's still a possibility. But if it's showing it gets there in 24 hours, it could get there in half that time. Regardless, I don't think it stays that strong for that long. It will weaken, but it may take some time weakening. So that's what we're looking at here. Here's a look at the HWRF model showing our intense system, well defined at this point, but over land or over water with no threat to land. It is going to grow in size early next week. You can see the wind field does expand substantially, and that will eventually play into what happens with Imelda, we believe. This is Tuesday morning. Here's Bermuda on the northeastern side of this particular map right here. Whoops, I thought I grabbed my pen and I guess I didn't. This is Bermuda. So still a pretty safe distance Tuesday morning at that point. Winds here are going to be about 120 miles per hour around the eye here, around the eye wall. But over time, this storm is expected to make a turn, and you can see it will actually get closer to Bermuda Tuesday evening. And wind speed, you can't see this number, but wind speeds on the island could get up to about 35 miles per hour during the evening Tuesday night. And then overnight up to 40 miles per hour. And now we're seeing about 50 miles per hour early on Wednesday. This would be Wednesday morning around 9 a.m. And then 55 miles per hour Wednesday at lunchtime, 57 Wednesday afternoon. And then things start to relax Wednesday night. So if I were betting right now, and this could shift, if I were betting right now, I do expect Bermuda will be under a tropical storm watch, probably Sunday night or Monday morning, and a tropical storm warning Monday night through Wednesday at this point. That could change, but that's what I'm expecting. Certainly there's going to be rough surf. There may not be much rain out of this system, but it's not huge. But there should be a few bands, I would think, of showers. So that's what we're looking at. Now we're going to spend probably the next 12 to 15 minutes chatting about 9, which will be Imelda. And you can see the satellite presence is certainly better today. We still do not yet technically have a classified tropical system, still fairly broad. But if there's a center, it's right about here. We do have heavier rain between Jamaica and the southwestern tip of Haiti. That could cause flooding, especially in the mountains of Haiti and eastern Cuba and the mountains of Jamaica. We do have an upper level trough that's still stuck down here, producing a little bit of wind shear, but we also have southerly flow. And that's going to pull this system northwestward, somewhere in this direction, right across the Bahamas during the weekend, eventually making its way east of Florida, making its nearest approach up in here, probably Sunday night, early on Monday morning. Now you see the trough to the west. That is going to get stuck because of this building area of high pressure here. So you've got a trough moving this direction, you have a high building this direction, and you've got this area gets squeezed into here. So that's what we're watching. If you take a look at the infrared, you see a much better looking system today, much healthier, but still not quite a circulation. And we'll probably see this become our tropical storm, I would think, tonight. It's possible it could still happen this afternoon, depending on how this interacts with Cuba and those mountains there. But it's over warm water now. It's got time to consolidate. And you can see the wind shear is not super high. It's on the lower moderate side at this time. So we're getting ready for that at this point. If you look at lightning strikes, there's certainly more of those now around a center. The only thing I think keeping this from being classified a tropical storm is that you see southerly flow to the west of the center. The center's here, and you see southerly flow here, and technically we need it to be out of the north. So we need something to come around in this direction and not from this direction. So that flow is not yet enough for this to close off at this point. Here's a look at the forecast for, it's not a tropical depression yet. I know this graphic shows that, but for future Imelda, and likely to strengthen up to tropical storm strength during the night tonight, and continuing to strengthen as it moves across right over Grand Bahama and right over New Providence. So the track takes it over Nassau during the evening hours tomorrow as a 45 mile per hour tropical storm, then up to 60 miles per hour during the overnight hours and into the early portion of Monday morning. Now, this track has slowed down from models which a couple days ago had it all the way up to here on Monday morning. I'm going to talk about that in the video as well. And so the challenge now with the slowing storm is that, yes, it should be a hurricane, but it's going to get stuck near or to the south of the coast of South Carolina. And then after that, that's when the fun starts in trying to predict where this is going to go. So rather than this coming inland on Monday afternoon or Monday night, it's probably going to stall east of Florida and south of South Carolina. And then after that, the window of possibilities goes up substantially. You do see we do have tropical storm warnings, so that is guaranteed. I do think we're going to have tropical storm conditions over the central and in particular northwestern Bahamas. And that track actually would take the strongest winds right through Nassau and then right up towards the Abacos and right over the eastern portion of Grand Bahama. And any shift to the west could bring the stronger winds towards Freeport and even towards the coastal waters of Florida. So we'll keep an eye on that. Of course, every little jog is going to matter at this point, because you can see that Jacksonville and Savannah are in the cone. Certainly South Carolina is in the cone, and the coast of North Carolina all the way up here to about Ocracoke is in the cone at this point. The key messages show that this system is going to bring heavy rain. That is probably the biggest problem we have to worry about at this moment over Cuba, Hispaniola. It's already been getting wet in both of those areas, Jamaica as well, and eventually the Bahamas, the northern and central Bahamas. And mudslides will be possible in mountainous areas of Cuba, mountainous areas of Haiti, and mountainous areas of Jamaica, and western portions of Dominican Republic. The threat for heavy rain moving into the southeast is very complex. We're getting heavy rain due to the fact that we have a stalled frontal boundary this weekend. That is something to be concerned with. What happens with Imelda is going to be extremely complex, and an error of 100 miles from the forecast now could mean all the difference in how much rain we're talking about next week. Keep in mind, we have a big area of high pressure that's going to build into the northeast next week, and that's going to stall this system near the coast. It may push it out, but we still have a frontal boundary that's going to divide much cooler air across the mid-Atlantic and northeast from the swampy air over Florida. And that front's going to serve as a focus for heavy rain. Whether or not it comes from Imelda, we're still going to have the heavy rain. So as far as wind impacts, that's where the challenge really exists. We're going to have really rough surf because we have a category 4 or 5 hurricane out there and what should be a category 1 hurricane. The two combined will cause some extreme waves, especially well offshore. But we have just a very challenging path forecast at this point. Rainfall amounts you can see are going to be very high, but this is just through the weekend and early next week. Imagine this farther north and west towards South Carolina and Georgia. Now, this is where the meteorology is going to be kicking in. We've got track forecasts that split substantially. We have hurricane models which pull the system into South Carolina. The shift southward has begun, and now we have a track into southern Charleston County and or into Beaufort County, South Carolina, and maybe Hampton County as well. Yesterday, we had more tracks that were up towards the Grand Strand or Georgetown County, maybe up towards Myrtle Beach or Pawleys Island or those Georgetown, those areas up in here. That track has shifted south, but also it's substantially slowed down. Where we were looking at potential landfall Monday evening. Now, none of these tropical models has us coming inland until Tuesday at the earliest. But these are the tropical models. Every other model, every global model has this peeling away to the right, maybe stalling, but eventually moving to the right. I'm going to talk about why this difference is here in a little bit. Intensity forecasts, this actually isn't as challenging. Now that we're probably not going to see a landfall yet, we're probably looking at a category 1. I don't think we're going to see stronger than 2. We'll have to wait and see on this, but there will be some wind shear and some proximity to land at this point. But there is still some potential if it stays offshore that this could try to get stronger and overachieve. Every hurricane this season has overachieved, so that's just something to keep in mind. And until the system actually does form and we know what it looks like, I would not rule this out becoming a hurricane near the Bahamas, the northern Bahamas at least. So something to keep an eye on there. If you look here at the confidence is very high until the system gets to about 30 degrees north, which puts it east of St. Augustine. After that, we still have a moderate confidence that we have something close to Charleston, South Carolina. but the confidence gets very low for places like coastal Florida, Georgia, inland South Carolina, inland North Carolina, and Virginia. And there's actually some higher confidence of some potential outlets here to the right where this heads in the general direction of Bermuda. That's not a guarantee. That's just something that we're going to be watching here. Taking a look at what the ensembles are showing, you're going to see that there's high confidence through the Bahamas. Then things start getting murkier here. This gets us to tomorrow night, about 8 o'clock Eastern time. And then Monday morning, and you can see there are ensembles that still have this system approaching the coastline during the lunchtime hour here of Monday. And we still have some that are stuck near Andros Island and near Nassau and near Abaco in the Bahamas. So there's a 300-mile, 400-mile spread already when we get to Monday afternoon. And then that spread continues where we've got models that are peeling the system off because Humberto is drawing the system right. We have solutions that pull this all the way up closer to Charlotte and Columbia. We even have a few that try to draw it towards Florida, which I don't think will happen, but something to keep an eye on at this point. And then you see the ellipse just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And look at how spread out this is. By the time we get to Wednesday evening, because I've had people on my Facebook page and on here ask me, hey, I've got a flight or a drive Monday evening or Tuesday evening. Where's the storm going to be? Well, if you believe this, it could be anywhere from Georgia to halfway across the Atlantic. That is extreme. But the majority of our guidance still shows it hovering near the coast, meaning there will probably still be coastal impacts and maybe strong impacts. After that, the ellipse gets massive, and we just have all kinds of scenarios. And if you look at the area here in lighter blue, let me circle it for you here. We see some ensemble members crowding near the coast on the morning of the 4th, which is a week from today. What this means is there's a very real possibility that the track pulls us out to sea. It gets drawn away by Humberto and then loses its grip and tries to circle back towards the coast. And that is what I'm going to be watching for because it doesn't have a clean escape route at this point. It has a path where it can escape, but that doesn't mean it's going to escape. So something we're just going to have to keep a close eye on here. Looking at ensemble members, this is the Google DeepMind. We do still have several hitting South Carolina, but several more are turning it away at the last minute and quite a few still pulling it away and quite a few pulling it back towards North Carolina and maybe coming up the eastern seaboard at this point. Here's a European ensemble and similar scenario here, not as strong as Google DeepMind, but you can see some threats to Bermuda down the road, still threats to South Carolina, even a couple threats to North Carolina. What this does not show you is at what time frame this could happen. So we may need to be on our toes right through next weekend is the point I want to make. Wow. Here's a look at the Google DeepMind for you all. And you see the big spread right here. This is early Tuesday morning at 7, 8 in the morning, where we have it on the doorstep here of the coast of South Carolina, but we also have potentially stalling well to the east of the Space Coast. And then we have solutions which loop it back out here. So let me take the tracks off so you can see that real quick here. All right, I'm going to move this manually. And you see that's just a massive amount of spread on Tuesday night. And the forecast just keeps getting more and more complicated at that point. European Ensemble Prediction Center or system shows the same thing where, yes, the mean of the models is here, but we've got solutions in Georgia, solutions still off the coast, and some that are way out to sea at that point. The GFS has shifted quite a bit, where a couple days ago it was very weak and getting absorbed by Hurricane Humberto, then becoming its own system, then becoming a hurricane, and then moving into South Carolina as soon as Monday evening, and then shifting up the coast. Whoops, sorry about that. I don't know why it's doing that. And then even faster, that was yesterday morning, and then slowing down, and then slowing down some more, and then slowing down some more, and then slowing down some more. And you see the trend here where the global models no longer want this thing to come on shore on Monday or Tuesday. They want it to sit out over the water. The tropical models, though, do want to make landfall. Here's the H-Wharf, and you can see it coming up and making landfall just down the coast here near the Isle of Palms and halfway down to Bluffton. And you can see the landfall Tuesday morning, but it doesn't really come on shore. It just kind of hovers over Charleston County and then eventually goes back out as a weaker system and lingers and lingers and lingers. Here is, that's the same model. All right. Here's the halves model, and I want to show you real quick what's going on. If you look at 9 and you see why the tropical models are trying to bring this on shore, it's because they're being run on this system. They're ignoring the fact that Humberto is out there. But when we pull up the parent view of Humberto, we see a totally different scenario where instead of a storm hovering at the coast of South Carolina, we have a storm that's stalling and even drifting south, even in the direction of Florida. You see that right here. And the reason is that all of those hurricane models that I showed you here a little while ago, these are being run specifically on Imelda. They are ignoring the fact that Humberto's out there. The global models see Humberto out there, and the difference is a landfalling system versus a system that gets pulled away. So at this point, I tend to believe this system is not going to come on shore. It's going to flirt with the coast. It may even stall a couple hundred miles offshore, but that may not be the end of it. It may still be in our neck of the woods heading into late next week and beyond. The Canadian's a good blend between all of them. It shows the strong winds approaching the coast on Tuesday and then the storm coming back out. And then it actually pulls the system northwest right up the East Coast here next weekend. That's a little bit extreme, but that is a possibility we need to be watching. Here's a wind forecast for the Carolinas. This is tomorrow night. This is Monday morning. This is Monday night. And the strongest winds are likely going to be on Tuesday at the coast. But you can see it's not quite as threatening as maybe what it was looking like a couple days ago. And that's because the system is a little bit slower at this point. But if you look at the Canadian farther up the coast, you're going to see, yeah, it's breezy for a few days, but not a big deal. Then we see some stronger winds moving in the direction of the mid-Atlantic coast here next weekend. Again, something we're going to have to just stay tuned for. This is not a forecast. It's just one model, but it's a trend that I'll be watching for everybody. Here's the halves model real quick. You see the strong winds over the Bahamas. Then you see some pretty strong winds maybe approaching the Space Coast Monday afternoon and Monday evening. Wind gusts maybe up to about 50 miles per hour, give or take, even coastal Georgia. So I would not be shocked if we had a tropical storm watch in effect from the Treasure Coast all the way up into South Carolina. And that could be issued as soon as tomorrow evening. Maybe even a tropical storm warning for Georgia and South Carolina and possibly even parts of North Carolina. But you can see on the halves model, it just doesn't want to make landfall. It wants to kind of hover. And then eventually we have a landfall on the halves A coming on Wednesday night, Thursday morning, very close to Hilton Head Island, and then eventually coming inland after that. Man, just a complicated setup. And so this could dramatically shift some of the rainfall Armageddon forecasts that we've been seeing out there on social media, which I've not posted, by the way. This is what the European was showing yesterday. Some incredible amounts of rain over South Carolina, North Carolina, 20 to 30 inches. But now with that trend offshore, we see those numbers have come down substantially. There'll still be heavy rain potential. We're looking at 3 to 6 inches of rain, but that's a lot better than 20 to 30 at this point. So I'm going to wrap things up here. I will plan to be back on here later on this evening. I'm going to the beach, trying to avoid some rain here with my family today. But I'll be back this evening. I hope everybody stays safe out there and has a wonderful Saturday. I am going to conclude with a word of God, as I am a Christian man. I do that every video because that's what I've been called to do. Blessed is the man who trusts in the Lord and whose hope is the Lord. For he shall be like a tree planted by the waters, which spreads out its roots by the river and will not fear when the heat comes. But its leaf will be green and will not be anxious in the year of drought, nor will cease from yielding fruit. We serve a wonderful God, and trusting in him and having hope in the Lord gives us the opportunity to not just have hope, but to take away all of the anxiety that comes from the worry about what may or may not come to fruition. there's a lot of worry about storms like this, but at the end of the day, not everybody is going to have finality from one storm. There will always be storms in your life, but that's not the end. There doesn't have to be an end. This could be a new beginning for you if you choose to follow Jesus Christ, a new beginning that leads to eternal bliss. And that's the good news that keeps me going day after day after day. It's not the craziness of the world. It's not the disappointment that other folks have had in me. It's not the swoons in business or who's in the White House or whatever. None of that really does matter. What matters is that there is hope in Christ, and that hope is there for you. And I hope that you truly, truly have that relationship with God and accept Jesus as your Savior, because life doesn't have to end. This is just a new beginning for you. I hope you all have a wonderful Saturday. I look forward to being back on with you with any updates that come. Thanks so much. See ya.